everybody. Happy Monday. Let's forget to take that off. All right, what is going on? Well, in the building, we're still under lockdown. As you know, I need to be able to reach my water. But we've got some good programs this week. I've got Live from the Met again. We have Martin Scorsese's movie Kundun about the Dalai Lama. Great concert on Thursday night, Benny Goodman, The Man in the Moonglow, plus Liza with a Z, Thursday afternoon. The Netflix series this week is Self-Made, which is about Madam C.J. Walker. She was the first African-American millionaire in America. Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock, dance party and staff parade in the parking lot. So go to your windows at 1. That should be running on the in-house channel soon. We've Clint doing another show on Saturday night, and the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical this week, Friday, is The Wiz. Again, if there's anything that you want that I'm not doing or any movies, I did get a few. You called me, thank you. So I've ordered Knives Out, someone asked me for, and someone sent me an email about the movie Philadelphia. It's not available on DVD, but I'm going to see if there's somewhere I can stream it. I felt like there was something else I had to tell you. Can't remember. It'll come to me though in the middle of my talk. Okay, so let's start with the protests everywhere. They're now in all 50 states. Large and small. I went to the one with my sister on Saturday. A few of you saw us because we actually parked over here so that our car didn't get stuck across the bridge. Depending, we didn't know how big the protest was going to be, so we knew we could get back. It was very peaceful. I think there are about 1,500, 2,000 people there. It was great, but most importantly, I was I was struck by how well the police acted and how well behaved they were, which is really horrible to have to say that, but it's true. And they were helpful and they were fine. And what they did was, the initial plan was to meet at Sears parking lot, but I guess the one officer had told me they wanted to move it because those were hospital routes. So they calmly asked if everybody could go to State Street, which everybody did, and then we marched down to the courthouse and then marched back. And the police did no instigating. There were no problems. They simply blocked the side streets to Main Street, which is where the protest was. The businesses on Main Street were giving out water and they were open. I'm sure the food places did a booming business after the rally because people lined up at 11:30, 12 o'clock, and then didn't really start marching till 1. So when we were coming out, people were stopping at all the small places in Hackensack. I will put a shout out to a brand new business. It's called Broritos. It's a black-owned business on Main Street. They used to have just a food truck and they would go places, but now they open a small place. It's really takeout. There's not really anywhere to sit. Great burritos. Huge. I mean, enough for 2 for a meal. So we stopped there because I had them before. But the police weren't instigating anybody. They weren't in riot gear. They just had regular uniforms on. And there was no problem. Everyone was respectful to them, and they were respectful to the marchers. And so there was no problem. That is not true everywhere. Where's my note? Okay. First of all, Mayor de Blasio in New York claimed the other day that he had seen no instances of police brutality. So I was thinking we should maybe get a GoFundMe going for the mayor to get a TV or cable, because there have been horrific acts of police brutality in New York during these protests, particularly in Brooklyn. At this point, there are two people, a lawyer and a student at one of the schools in Atlanta, that are collecting videos of the police behavior during these protests. They have so far collected 400 videos of police beating protesters, using tear gas, rubber bullets. They're calling it now kettling, where they get everybody in one area, and they're pulling out their batons immediately and hitting people. This is going on everywhere. In Atlanta, there were two young African Americans who were trying to leave the protest, and they body slammed this young girl who I think she's about 19 years old, 20 years old, and actually broke her shoulder and collarbone. This is going on all over the place. And so now what you have is a complete sea change in attitude that among American citizens than you had, say, 2 weeks ago. At this point, 59% of Americans are more concerned about police actions, and only 27% are concerned about the protesters. So you actually, at this point, have a majority of Americans saying that this behavior is not acceptable. And I have to think some of that switch, and that was the NBC Wall Street Journal poll. I have to think that a lot of that switch is because of all the videos coming out. I mean, they're indisputable. I know we all saw the picture in Buffalo where the older man is walking up and talking to the police, and I really don't care what he said, where they push him. The man is in ICU, and even when one of the officers actually goes down to help, the other officers grab him and push him to keep going. This is really disturbing to watch. It reminds me of the civil rights movements of the late 50s and 60s, where you had the police sicking dogs and hoses on peaceful protesters. This is what's happening in America right now, and it's being and these fans are being flamed. These flames are being fanned, excuse me, by the White House. I guess they think it's going to shore up their base. The thing is, it's having the opposite effect, because people are just disgusted by what they're seeing the police do in situations that are completely unnecessary. We're going to get to some polling later. Now, this is leading to a new argument about defunding the police. Now, I don't think there's any national political will to completely defund the police. I don't think you're going to get that passed anywhere. I think we do need law enforcement for a variety of things in our society. What I would support, though, is demilitarizing the police. And again, I'm going to go to our little city, Hackensack, next door to us, and in Teaneck, they weren't in riot gear. In Hackensack, they weren't in riot gear. They didn't have submachine guns. They didn't have any of these things. They were, and in fact, a lot of the motorcycle police officers on the side street in Hackensack and in Teaneck didn't even have guns on them at all. That's not what we're seeing everywhere. You're seeing police officers show up in full regalia with tear gas canisters, rubber bullets, machine guns, rifles. This is not necessary for protesters. We have a First Amendment right to protest. Now, people are talking about the looting that went on a week ago. Again, let's look at the videos. You do not see people leaving the protest area and then going and doing this. This is a separate group of people that is capitalizing on the protests and causing that kind of mayhem. In the meantime, why are the police not addressing those people that are looting, They're not. What they were doing in Brooklyn and in Manhattan was people were coming, and there are a few videos of this, people are coming from side streets who have nothing to do with people at the protest. They're coming out of side streets, and they are the ones with bricks and bats going into the stores and looting. What has then happened is the police are converging, and anybody in that area, they're swinging the batons, they're throwing them on the ground, they're arresting them. That's not really good policing. So by the time they're doing all that, I guarantee half the people that actually were looting and wrecking stores got away. And that's not my opinion, by the way. This is all bared out in the videos as time's gone on. There are 400 videos. What do you think about that? 400 instances of police brutality against protesters. Buffalo, New York is hardly a hotbed of leftist anarchy, and that's where we saw the 75-year-old man pushed, and that's where we saw another situation where they were just literally clearing an area with sticks. We saw the Attorney General, who now claims that he didn't order tear gas, but peaceful protesters were tear gassed and shot with rubber bullets so the president could walk to a place he's never been, holding up a book he's never read. He constantly claims the military supports him. Well, apparently not. Besides Jim Mattis, who I'm sure you all heard about the note that he wrote, his public note, you've also got Kelly. 89 other current and former military leaders signed a letter, an open letter to the Washington Post last week denouncing the president's actions during this protest. George W. Bush and Mitt Romney came out this week and said they will not support the president for re-election. Colin Powell has said point blank, Trump lies all the time. So along with his other list of people who he says love him, he constantly talks about the military. Well, apparently they don't. Many of the military leaders are not happy with his call or his threat to use the military in DC against the protesters. That is illegal, by the way. That can only be done by an act of Congress, and the House is not going to go for that now, or I can't imagine any time. So what's the difference between defunding the police and demilitarizing the police? Defunding would lead us without a local law enforcement for regular crimes, and that's not a good idea. We've always needed some kind of police force for legitimate crime. What we don't need, though, is small armies everywhere, and that's what we have. We have these mobile response units and riot squads and expensive military weaponry that have been given to local police forces since 9/11. It's not necessary. They do not need to have that kind of firepower. Now, I'm sure there are places in the country where you have a thriving drug trade, where some of the criminals have automatic weapons or semi-automatic, and maybe those police forces in some cases need them. I would say that a place like Idaho or Oregon, where they have a huge white supremacist problem and pockets of white supremacist, almost communes, and those people are very armed, I would say maybe those police forces probably need them. But I don't think that Hackensack, New Jersey and Teaneck need that kind of weaponry. For what? This seems to be, in many cases, their sort of opportunity to play with their toys against citizens exercising their First Amendment rights. This is not a police state as much as the current occupant of the White House seems to want it to be. I thought that the sad thing, well, there's a lot of sad things, but so far, only one Republican senator has gone to any of these protests, and that, of course, was Mitt Romney. It doesn't surprise me, but where is Susan Collins? Where is Lisa Murkowski? There's a lot more, but where is Tim Scott, who is black? Senator Romney was the only one who went, and of course the president attacked him for it. The only one. It can't possibly be true that no Republican senators understand that we have a problem in this country with race, that we have a problem in this country with the way the police deal with African Americans or any people of color versus how they treat white people. If any U.S. senator actually believes that, they should not be in the U.S. Senate. Now, we can agree to disagree on how we fix that, but for the Attorney General, who yesterday said that there is no, what's his exact quote? No systemic racism in policing. That is what the Attorney General of the United States said. I would say that statement alone makes him disqualified to be the Attorney General of the United States. It is very clear that there is difference in behaviors when police officers are dealing with someone white versus someone black. That is, that's not even in dispute in America. I don't know who possibly believes that. Well, other than apparently the Attorney General. I am starting to be much more hopeful, though, because we now have a majority of citizens, as I mentioned before, who are more concerned about the police actions than they are about the protesters. Now, I'm not sure the president's seeing all these polls or his advisors. Well, I know some of them are because they're worried, but he seems to continue to try to appeal to his base rather than everyone else. And 59% is a decent majority of people. Even if it was 50-50, that's a change from 2 weeks ago. So 59% of people are more concerned about police action than the protesters. Yet he doesn't seem to understand that. What else are the polls saying right now? This is also from the NBC Wall Street Journal. Then I'll get to the CNN poll, and I can't read my own handwriting. There were two polls that came out. Anyway, it also says that 80% of citizens, 80% of Americans believe that things are out of control right now. That is the pandemic, the protests, I would say the general state of anxiety that the current occupant of the White House puts everyone in every day. We've not had a White House like this before. You know that, I know that. There's constant drama attacking people. It's like you're dealing with a spoiled 10-year-old that just won't stop. Now, the good news is, well, if you want this to end like I do, the good news is two polls, the CNN and the Wall Street Journal, have the president's approval at the highest. Well, there's actually four polls, but 38% on CNN, 43% on, I believe it was Marist, because I can't read my handwriting. That was the highest he's gotten. So he's under 50. At this point, former Vice President Biden is anywhere from 10 to 14 points ahead. He is leading in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Ohio, Nevada, Arizona. Those are some of the swing states. The other thing that's happening at the same time is in the US Senate races, in the primaries, the leftists who are running against centrist Democrats are losing. I think that Democratic voters at this point are getting it, that we need to win the White House. We need to get this man out of the White House. I can't imagine anybody sane who doesn't think that. And we need to win the Senate. And to do that in states like Arizona, Kentucky, Montana, Maine, we need to have a centrist candidate. And I'm not sure whether this really means anything in the long term for the progressive arm of the Democratic Party. Some of the political pundits seem to think this is the death of that arm. I don't think it is. I think it's more a reaction to what's happening right now, and I do think that many people who would normally be voting for a progressive, many people who agree more with the Sanders arm of the Democratic Party, if we want to call it that, are at this point so concerned about a second Trump term that they're in effect holding their noses and voting centrist. Because we don't want to lose the Senate by one seat and have Mitch McConnell still running that. We don't want to lose it by 2 seats. What would be great is to win the White House, take the Senate away. But more importantly than actually winning the Senate, is getting rid of the ideologues and the Trumpians. I mean, no way would I want Mitt Romney to lose his election this year. He has, I don't agree with him, and I don't agree most of the time with his politics, but he is an honorable public servant, and so we wouldn't want him to lose. But Martha McSally in Arizona, Trumpian. Joni Ernst, she's a Palinista. Obviously, Mitch McConnell. Susan Collins has to go. So this is who has to go. It's not every Republican. Every Republican is not bad. But Tom Cotton, who thinks that we should have a military state, I don't think he's up for re-election, but I wish he was. These people have to go. And I'm hoping that after this election, the more normal Republicans, the Main Street Republicans, are going to get together and start recruiting candidates and not leave it up to the RNC. They also, I think both parties need to change the National Committee staffing. Right now what happens is whoever is president of that party really picks the staff at the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee. And generally, upper-level staff stay, and the people that have been there for a long time stay. But the congressional campaign committees, the Senate, the state party leaders, I think that needs to become more of a professional operation rather than an arm of a specific candidate or president. And that's become a problem because the RNC is now staffed with Trump allies, so is the Senate Campaign Committee, so is the Congressional Campaign Committee. So it's hard to get the RNC, and this is true for the Democrats too, if you have a president that is not helping you and is failing in every way, and hurting the country, it's hard to get them to make the decision not to fund the presidential campaign or to divert money. If I were at the RNC right now, I would say, let Trump raise his own money, don't worry about it. And I would be spending all the money we have to hold these Senate seats. But I think what you're going to see is, like we're seeing in Alabama, where the president is fighting with Jeff Sessions. And so if Jeff Sessions gets that nomination, are they going to not fund Jeff Sessions? Now, I hope so, because the Democrats will then keep that seat, which will be a surprise. But that's what's wrong with the party systems on the national level, and the state also. When you have these insurgencies, you suddenly get people running the party who are too far left if you're a Democrat and too far right if you're a Republican. Now, in some cases, that's done on purpose. The religious right did a good job of that in the 80s and 90s, taking over the Republican state parties, and ultimately, that's why we are where we are with the Republican Party. So that's something that has to change. And again, the Democrats do the same thing, so don't call and say, oh, you're only talking about them. When Bill Clinton was in office, it was all his people at the Democratic National Committee. When Obama was in office, it was his people. So, or allies. So I think that maybe we should make appointments, for 10 years or something, or 5 years, or some number of years, so that if there's a switch in administration, you don't then have new people who are allied with a specific candidate or politician, that rather they are allied to the party and the states. So that's my idea for the parties. Now, I want to make sure I didn't forget anything here. No, Biden's up. 80% say protests everywhere, military, okay. Now, here's what I want to really talk about. And I want some of you to call me, because nobody's saying what they think. And I don't have you in front of me, so I can't ask you. It is pretty clear that all eyes are on the protests, COVID, and then one other thing. And that is, who does Joe Biden pick for his vice presidential nominee? Vice President Biden secured the Democratic nomination, by the way, officially, so he is the nominee. Who should it be? Now, he said he's going to take a woman. Okay, so we know that. I have varying opinions on this. I feel like I'm the worst kind of flip-flopper on this, because I'm not sure how accurate some of the polling is right now. More importantly, I'm not sure if what people are saying now they'll be saying in October, November. I think a lot of it has to do with the economy, with what happens with this pandemic, with how long these protests go on, and what the results of all those things are. I don't think the economy is going to surge back like magic, like the president seems to think. God, I still don't like calling him that, but and sometimes I slip, because normally I call him the current occupant, but sometimes I do slip. So there are seems to be two schools of thought as to who former Vice President Biden should pick. I don't know what I say, it's just Joe. Who he should pick. Now, there's the one school of thought that is, I usually find myself in, and that is the 100% pragmatic answer. The pragmatic answer is, he picks the nominee based on what we need. What do I mean? We know we need to flip 3 states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. We need to hold everything else and flip those 3 states. So, the pragmatists, maybe we should call us cynics, say, well, Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of Michigan. They seem to like her there. Then there's the other school of thought that says, I mean, if you're just 100% pragmatic and say we need somebody who's going to bring us what we need, it would be Whitmer, I think. Now, I know a lot of you like Amy Klobuchar, but she's got too much baggage. There's too much going on there. Her staff's a revolving door. There's too many stories about her mistreating staff and things like that. And we need no diversion. And we certainly don't want to pick a vice presidential nominee who is going to immediately have stories about her that have nothing to do with the presidential race. So I think that, and I don't think that African American voters who I believe will be very key this year are going to be happy if she is picked. I don't think Hispanic voters will be happy if she is picked. So I think she's out. Now, Gretchen Whitmer, I'm not seeing any bad things about her. I looked her up. Hopefully every single person they're vetting, they're doing a better job than the McCain campaign did with Sarah Palin, and I'm sure they are. Liz Warren, she's the other, she's the liberal favorite. But I'm not sure what Liz Warren brings Joe that he doesn't already have. She was elected from Massachusetts, but she's always had a national base. And I'm not sure, she's more liberal than Joe on many things. And so I don't know if centrists are comfortable, or independents, with choosing a vice presidential nominee that they don't agree with, that in fact they voted against those policies in the primaries, and that's why they voted for Joe rather than Liz Warren or Bernie Sanders. So I'm not sure. So then we have Kamala Harris. Now, you all know that that's been my choice for some time. She still is. But there seems to be 2 other people. The rumbling is that they're vetting and investigating 2 new people that they haven't before now. One is Congresswoman Val Demings from Florida. Florida's a state we need. She is African American. She was also the Orlando police chief. Her husband is a sheriff. That certainly gives Joe some cover on the crime bill from the 90s, the crime bills, there's not just one, that he's been attacked for. So you're probably going to see a little more of her in the next couple of weeks. At least the press is picking up on it. I know she was on 2 shows the past 4 days that I haven't seen her in a while. The other one is the Atlanta mayor, Keisha Lance Bottom. Now, I thought I was forgetting somebody. Oh, I am. I'll come to that. Now, that's an interesting choice because she's mayor of a city. She's done a good job in the protests, and she's done a good job as mayor, according to at least my friends in Atlanta. I don't see anything. I don't see any big negatives, any scandal. The bonus to her, well, there's a lot of bonuses. She is African American. She's from the South, and she was an early Biden supporter. So she's being vetted right now. Jackie Rosen in Nevada. I still think that wouldn't be a bad choice. Jackie is white. She's Jewish. No scandal there at all. We can't have anybody that something's going to pop up. it just has to be somebody that is squeaky clean. Now, the only thing that Val Demings has in Florida is that actually when she was police chief at one point, she got out of her car and she didn't lock the car, and someone actually stole her gun, her police authorized gun. So she was criticized for not securing it and not bringing it with her and whatever. That's about the only thing that I know that is a real negative on Val Demings, and I just can't believe that that would be this big of an issue. I mean, I remember when that story came out years ago, and I thought that's a pretty bold thief to steal from the sheriff's car, or the chief of police's car. So that's the only thing. They can make fun of that a little bit, but that's about it. Jackie Rosen I like. I'm still with Kamala Harris, but now there's a lot of talk this weekend again popping up. I don't know who's starting it, but Susan Rice. Now, Susan Rice is very smart. Susan Rice would be a good candidate, except if she is picked, Benghazi comes back. Why? Now, some of you will remember this because, of course, it all landed as Mrs. Clinton's fault. But Susan Rice, when the Libyan protests started, is the one who was on TV saying this was because of the drawings of Muhammad. And it turned out later that it wasn't that. It was actually an organized effort. Now, the president didn't say that, but Susan Rice did. And then later on, it all escalated and Hillary Clinton was blamed. I don't want to rerun and reopen the Benghazi nonsense. That's what it is, too. It is nonsense, but don't give them any ammunition. And I think that's ammunition. Though I wouldn't have a problem if he touted her for Secretary of State or something else. I would have no problem with Susan Rice back in the administration. I think she's smart. I think that whole Benghazi thing about the drawings of Muhammad and all of that, I think that was she was on TV first, and that's what somebody believed, and that's what they told her. So I don't really hold anything, I don't hold that against her, but I don't want to hear Benghazi for 3 months. It doesn't help. So I guess my bottom line is whoever does the least damage and has no scandal, no drama, is who the nominee should be. And maybe there isn't any candidate like that. Maybe everybody has something, and that's okay. I don't expect to vote for a perfect person. I don't think there are any perfect people, but I'm okay with someone having done something that I don't particularly like earlier in their life. I'm okay if someone smoked pot in college. I'm okay with that. It's all right. It just can't be anything big. It can't be anything diversionary. It can be a one-day story. It can't be 3 months. And that would be Benghazi. Now, so that's what's going on in the real world. Now let's talk about what's going on in Trump land. I know we all saw the nonsense of him ordering tear gas and rubber bullets of peaceful protesters at Lafayette Square so he could walk to St. John's, a place he's never been, and hold up a book he's never read. He also erected these walls around the White House, which, by the way, people are calling his baby gates, which I think is very funny. So, yeah, look, we've had Vietnam protests. We've had 9/11. When the Pentagon was attacked, and there were planes on the way to attack the White House and the Capitol, and we didn't erect baby gates to protect the president. we didn't need them. So while he's hiding behind baby gates, he's also saying that gays support him. This is what he said yesterday. As we all saw the horrifying statement he made in reference to the jobs report the other day, where he said, for George Floyd, this would be a great day. It's a completely insensitive and horrifying thing to say about this man who was murdered by the police. He has, in the last 2 days, attacked Roger Goodall, the NFL director, Colin Powell, the mayor of DC, the mayor of Atlanta. He took credit for the protests being peaceful when all the violence in DC seemed to have been spurred on by his actions, not the protests or the protesters. And as usual, he's living in this fantasy world and hiding in bunkers and behind baby gates with seemingly no clue as to what's going on in the world and why this is happening. I know last week I talked mostly about the police brutality against African Americans, and I was pretty down last week about it, and I'm actually a little more hopeful because this week, as I've watched the protests go on and on, what I'm seeing is far more white people of all ages. And I think that we got to give credit to the kids for this and their phones. You know, we all get annoyed when we're with young people and they're always on their phones. I don't think we would see this change in people's attitudes if the kids weren't photographing everything, and that is a good thing. It would be a better thing if we could elect someone to the White House who actually cares about all citizens, not just the wealthy, not just the privileged, not just the white. So the polling numbers make me feel good that people are getting it. I want the economy to get better. People are hurting right now. Food banks are depleted because so many people are food insecure. Now, one of my friends who has a lot more money than me had said, I don't understand why suddenly it's a problem for people to eat. And maybe some of you don't know why, but most schools, at least the kids get lunch. Public schools in most of the larger states, school lunch is free, or a small amount. The parents the kids don't have to go and have a free card anymore, so your friends don't know your parents don't have money. They're given cards that they swipe and stuff. So lots of families and lots of schools also have breakfast. If you have 2 or 3 kids, and now suddenly they're home, that means someone has had to be home with them. And you are now feeding kids and yourself 3 meals at least, depends how old the kids are, 3 meals 7 days a week. That's a much larger expenditure on food than if it's dinner and the weekends. And the adults are home. Some have been furloughed, some laid off. Some hours have been cut for essential workers. You suddenly have a lot more household bills than you had to. And on top of it, if any of you have been to supermarkets, you know there's nothing on sale right now. You know, some of you who had more than one kid or had moms who were good shoppers and learned from them, or maybe you learned yourself. I live alone, I still do it. If chicken's on sale this week, that's what I buy, then I have it. Oh, fish is on sale, let me get that frozen, shrimp, oh, that's on sale. So you load up on staples that you can freeze or that you eat all the time. I went into the store the other day and ground beef, just 80%, not even the good stuff, was $7 a pound. In March, it was $3 a pound. That's a huge difference. Chicken is ridiculous. I actually figured out for myself, I'm eating more fish because it's actually same price. Normally it's, oh, fish is expensive. No, I'm eating fish. I'm eating fresh fish. But I live alone, it's fine. But if you have 3 kids and you've lost your jobs or one of the incomes in the house, it makes a big impact on your budget. And there are no sales at the supermarket, and in some cases, it's getting better this week. For a while, whatever's there is what you had to buy. There were weeks there was no beef, there were weeks there was no chicken. So that's where the food insecurity is coming from. It's not people mismanaging their money or wasting it. It's the pandemic and the supply chain. So again, if you're giving or donating, the local food banks are very much in need of staples and some cash. If you worry about doing all that, giving cash, I mean, you can buy a ShopRite gift card, or I guess probably that's the cheapest supermarket chain. Anyway, that's my public service announcement. So I know I say this every week, I'm sick of it, I can't wait to see all of you again, but stay inside, wash your hands, wear your masks, and if you go outside, and I think it's a good idea for you to go outside. It is very nice out. It's great weather. Get some fresh air, get a little sun, but please, please leave your mask on if you're with people, and social distance 6 feet apart. If you don't feel well or have any symptoms, please call us. We don't want anybody sick. We haven't had anyone sick in a while. We have no new cases. They're testing us. I mean, we're pretty good at this point, so we want to keep it that way. And keep the suggestions coming. I heard from one person via note and 2 people that you all loved the revival of Company Saturday night. I was happy about that. And I hope you liked the Kings of Broadway last night. Have a great week. Call me if you want anything. Bye.